I'm Cruz from the Index Cooperative. We've just launched a Diversified Staked ETH Index with representation from the top liquid staking protocols in the space. We have Lido, Stakewise, and Rocket Pool all represented here. Why don't we go ahead and do just a quick intro, everyone? Please just introduce your name, your role at the protocol, and then we'll get into intros for the protocols themselves a bit later. Izzy, how about you go ahead and begin?
Yep. Hey everyone. Thanks also, Cruz, for having us. So I'm Izzy. I'm a contributor at Lido. I lead a work stream that's called Node Operator Management. And basically, we're a bunch of contributors that act as liaisons in between the DAO and all of the different node operators that work together with Lido across the different protocols that Lido participates on. So that's Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, Polkadot, and Kusama. And basically, we're there to help facilitate all of the different processes and mechanisms for evaluating operators, onboarding them, and then monitoring them.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for joining us here. Langers, why don't you go next?
Hey, so I'm Langers, or Darren. I am the general manager of the core team, so of Rocket Pool. So I kind of do all the day-to-day ops and kind of whip the dev team. That's me.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us. I know we're all distributed all across the world, just like the Ethereum validators. So thanks for joining. Everyone's at a slightly unusual time of day, but I think it's something that we're kind of all used to working in this industry. And Jordan, how about you?
Sure thing. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Of course, name's Jordan, or JStar's my alias online. I'm the biz dev lead at Stakewise. So anything to do with protocol growth, partnerships, it's you'll be speaking to me basically.
Yeah, and thanks for coming. All right, a quick disclaimer before we really dive into it here. This content is for informational purposes only, should not be construed as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Please read the terms of service on indexcoop.com and use our tokens in accordance with them. All right. Really happy to have you guys all here today. I think the launch of a diversified ETH staking index really kind of shows the liquid staking industry has matured. We've got a few different options for folks to choose from. That there are other liquid staking tokens in existence that have not yet met the inclusion criteria for this index. But we're really happy to have 3 really high quality staking protocols included so far. Excited to add more to them eventually, but especially to you 3 for being in the index and creating such a great product. So the first topic that we want to hit is the history of liquid staking. Like I said, it's a sign that the industry has matured, but let's take a second to look back at how we got here. Ethereum has moved to merge to the proof of stake. I think everyone that's watching this probably is well aware that we've merged at the end of last summer. Staking yields have increased since that merge. Now that Stake ETH is actually being used to validate the Ethereum blockchain, and liquid staking is now one of, if not the most popular themes in all of DeFi this year. So perhaps, Izzy, could you take us through kind of the history of liquid staking? Lido has been around since the jump. Rocket Pool has been in development since the very beginning of ETH 2.0 and staking as well. But Izzy, can you kind of give us the overview of the origin of Lido and liquid staking?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do my best. I wasn't around back then, so I don't have firsthand information, but I've heard a lot about it. So I guess the whole idea of liquid staking even predates the Ethereum ecosystem, right? There was this famous paper around the internet bond, basically, that was written. The idea of developing liquid staking was actually put in practice, at least at a proof of concept level on some Cosmos chains. And then as Ethereum was talking about its evolution and basically an introduction of the beacon chain and the consensus layer and how staking would work, and not having a native delegated proof of stake model, everybody was talking about what's going to happen at the app layer, right? Once you really unlock the truly permissionless nature of build anything that you want to do on top of a very simple but at the same time robust staking mechanism, and then you have the whole asynchronous problem of the separation between the consensus layer and the execution layer, which has led to liquid staking and Ethereum working the way that it does. So when the proof of stake genesis for Ethereum happened back in December of 2020. Lido was one of the first protocols to launch liquid staking. There was a bunch of other ones at the same time, I think. And the idea was to create optionality for users that were staking their assets around two main vectors, right? That weren't possible at the time, and actually still aren't, because withdrawals are slated for around March of this time. And those were liquidity of your staked assets, and the second one was composability of those assets in DeFi. So by liquidity, we basically mean being able to access the assets or a representation of those assets as they are staked on the consensus layer. And by composability, we mean the idea of being able to take those assets and use them within decentralized finance, or easily transfer them from one account to another, or store them in like a colder vault if that's something that you want to do. And the really cool thing about liquid staking in general is I think that it encompasses like these principles around giving more empowerment to users to figure out what they want to do with their assets, and at the same time the idea of interconnecting all of the different pieces and puzzles that live on top of this ecosystem that we call Ethereum.
Yeah, I mean, the composability of liquid staking really highlights the best of DeFi, and something that Index Coop certainly tries to embody in all of our products, in terms of, all of our structured products can be self-custodied, can be used as collateral throughout the ecosystem. Definitely a level up over structured products in the traditional finance world. And Langers, I'll turn it over to you next, because I know Rocket Pool has been around since kind of the beginning of liquid staking as well. What was kind of the origin story of Rocket Pool? What problems did you guys see as really being worth trying to solve?
Yeah, so Rocket Pool started about I think 6 years ago. So quite a long time in this space. It's actually been around since Ethereum staking has been around, because Vitalik released the Move paper, which kind of outlined what proof of stake was. That's what Izzy was talking about as well. And Dave, our founder, took that and said, well, there are kind of mining pools. And so it's kind of interesting to think that there might actually be some staking pools as well. And so he built a prototype from essentially the Move paper. So that was a long time ago, and it's a natural progression from there. I think we were kind of one of the first people to mention liquid staking. It is a natural progression because there was always going to be people that wanted to stake any amount of ETH. And Ethereum staking has this kind of barrier to entry. And in fact, when Rocket Pool first started, the barrier was something like 1,000 ETH. So it's come down a lot since then. There's always this barrier to entry on the amount that you have to stake. So that's the first thing that kind of liquid staking solved, was the fact that you don't have to have 32 ETH. You can have 0.5 ETH, 1 ETH or whatever. And then the other thing is obviously then the composability aspect of it. That once you've kind of tokenized this, there's also the fact that some people don't want to run a node as well, and so that's it. So once you've tokenized kind of staked ETH, and then you have all these fantastic composability things that Izzy was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what Ethereum's doing with proof of stake is really powerful and incredible. And, the innovations of liquid staking and, for us structured products, it's all about breaking down the accessibility into those things to make them, put the power of those things into normal people's hands, which, all of your protocols certainly have done. And Jordan, what's the origin story for Stakewise? I think you guys came in a little bit later than, Rocket Pool's been around for 5 years, Langer said, but, what was the origin story for you guys? Did you already see Lido and Rocket Pool in the space and kind of got to find a new niche to fill?
Sure. So like Izzy, I actually wasn't here myself, but luckily the founder of Stakewise was. And actually, it's a similar story to both Lido and Rocket Pool. Dimitri saw the paper from Vitalik, and he actually just wanted to be a staker himself. And as Darren mentioned, the amount of ETH required to become a validator on Ethereum back in the day was significant. And it still is a significant amount for some people. So Stakewise was truly born out of the dream of our founder wanting to become a validator. And so in order to do that, he needed to get pool capital from his friends, and then it essentially ended up building Stakewise on top of that to allow anybody to join the pool and ultimately stake their ETH. And I think, I won't go into what liquid staking is. I think Izzy and Darren have already nailed that already. But I think the important thing to recognize is like reducing the barrier to entry here. So one, on the capital front, that's as I've mentioned, but also on the technical front as well. That's something that like ourselves and Lido have certainly done. And then it's great that Rocket Pool's coming in here and allowing solo stakers and people to actually stake on their own nodes if they want to as well. So, and I think also the question I get asked a lot is liquid staking going to disappear now withdrawals are going to be enabled? And that is certainly not true. As mentioned, the tokenization and the ability to use your staked capital across DeFi is one of the main benefits of liquid staking, and that's here to stay. And arguably the liquidity aspect is still super important, even post withdrawals. So yeah, liquid staking is here to stay, and it's going to be exciting to see how much it grows in the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to be all anyone's talking about in the DeFi space lately. I think Rocket Pool has probably seen the most growth as of late. Langers, why do you think liquid staking has really been taking off in the most recent months?
Yeah, so I think ever since the merge, in fact, I think liquid staking has always been popular, and maybe I'll take it back a little bit. So liquid staking has always been popular. I think it's a good source of yield, I would say. Essentially the counterparty is Ethereum. So as long as you believe in Ethereum, then it's kind of like a no-brainer. That's kind of, so it's always been quite popular. I think ever since the merge, we've seen like a massive uptick in kind of deposits, and that is mainly around the fact that the merge was quite worrying for a lot of people. When you're dealing with like the core developers, on a regular basis, and you're seeing their progress, you're not as worried. But certainly from an outside perspective, there was a lot of kind of some skepticism about whether it will ever happen. But all of that's gone away now because Ethereum, the core teams delivered the merge. So that was kind of like a massive de-risking event for Ethereum. And also with withdrawals coming up, that's another massive kind of de-risking event. I'm surprised at how much has been staked. Like, considering you cannot withdraw, it is just crazy how much has actually been staked. But it's kind of like the belief that people have in Ethereum and also the fact that they can deliver. The merge has shown that they can deliver, and withdrawals is much simpler, and so it's going to be good to kind of see that over the line. Obviously, we are very excited for withdrawals. It's going to be quite massive for us in terms of just continuing on our journey, and also for the life of proof of stake as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the merge has significantly de-risked Ethereum in terms of the execution risk has certainly gone down a good bit. And with asset prices the way they've been the last year, we haven't seen a huge boom because of that. But definitely de-risks Ethereum at all, which brings me to the second point we want to cover in this panel: why stake ETH? And this isn't just why should you stake the ETH that you already have, but why staked ETH, right? Why is staked ETH such an interesting and unique asset? Izzy, maybe you want to take a first crack at that, and we can go around the horn.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So,
Because with our diversified staked ETH index, especially, we feel like the audience here is people that don't already hold a ton of ETH, right? But buying staked ETH becomes a much more interesting proposition than just buying Bitcoin on a centralized exchange or ETH on a centralized exchange. Go ahead, Izzy.
Yeah, so I think that the cool thing about staked ETH, and especially like liquid staked ETH, is what it represents. So it's money that continuously works, or assets that continuously works, if you want to think about it that way. And if you want to think about what the Ethereum ecosystem represents, and what ETH as the token that drives not only the underlying security, economic security of the protocol writ large, but also how things move on the network, because ETH is what drives transactions. And ETH is what gets burned when transactions happen, thanks to EIP 1559. And ETH is basically like the circulatory system itself, but also like the blood that flows within the circulatory system. And then the idea that you can have an asset that represents all of these things, but at the same time is used to power the security of the protocol, and at the same time earns rewards for doing that. And then at the same time, you can use it in the ecosystem, like the decentralized finance ecosystem that sits on top of that, is immensely powerful. It's basically a new kind of financial primitive, if you want to think about it, that doesn't really exist in traditional markets. That allows you to think of the way that you allocate capital in totally new ways. And the amazing thing about it is that it's kind of like limitless, in the sense that like smart contract based blockchains are also limitless. It's permissionless with regards to what you can build on top of them, and then the assets themselves are also permissionless with regards to what you can use those as Legos to build on top of, like diversified staked ETH, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a staked ETH is a foundational building block that is the benchmark yield for all of DeFi. You can build a lot of incredible things with it. Of course, a lot of y'all's tokens are composable throughout DeFi. Staked ETH, I think most famously probably is, was added to Aave's money market recently. I know RETH has got a proposal out there to potentially get added to Aave V3 soon. Something we're excited about. So I think I'll just talk about Index Coop's. We have an IC ETH product as well. Of course, here we're here to talk about the Diversified Staked ETH Index that you guys are all a part of. But we're recently able to build a product called the Interest Compounding ETH Index that uses Lido's staked ETH token as collateral, deposits it into Aave's money market, borrows ETH against it, and buys more staked ETH. So you can get leveraged exposure to staking using those composable bricks of DeFi that Izzy mentioned. Really just a powerful strategy that anyone can get their hands on just by buying a token on a decentralized exchange. Right, it really puts the power of some of the best and most sophisticated and interesting strategies in the hands of anyone in the world with an internet connection. Jordan, can we hear from you? What do you think the value proposition for buying dsETH2, your liquid staking token, is? What are the points that you guys kind of hit home over and over?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the key things to mention is on the Stakewise side is that we'll soon be doing a major protocol upgrade and launching our version 3. And so dsETH2 will in a couple of months' time will no longer be our main liquid staking token. We'll be transitioning to a token called dsETH. And this token will essentially accrue the yield from a highly diversified set of node operators. For context, Stakewise will be going fully permissionless for node operators, so anybody will be able to join the network as an operator. And yeah, one of the key things about dsETH is that it's over collateralized, and this is something which is super important as we move past post Shanghai. Well, it's always important, but one of the key things post Shanghai is one of the key risks towards the peg stability of a liquid staking token is the amount of ETH backing that token. And what can cause the ETH backing the token to drop is slashing and penalties. And so one of the things we made sure of when we were building out this new version of the protocol is that we had a liquid staking token which does have over collateralization, that has a capital buffer for if there is slashing losses, which is completely possible when you're onboarding anonymous node operators, for example. So currently dsETH2, our current token, does not have too much utility across DeFi. The reason for this is because we knew earlier last year, we knew we were doing a big transition, so we've kind of paused all of our integrations. But there's a pretty well-defined roadmap ahead for as soon as this new token dsETH goes live. We've got a lot of plans for the liquidity and the integration. So we're hoping that dsETH will be have just as much utility as the other liquid staking tokens out there today.
Yeah, fear not, dsETH holders. We're aware the Stakewise V3 is coming. contracts are fully upgradable, we'll migrate that new token in there, no problem at all. You mentioned something interesting there with upgrading to Stakewise v3 as far as moving to a permissionless node operator set. Langers, I think Rocket Pool is quite famous for having this permissionless node operator set. Why might stakers want a permissionless node operator set powering your liquid staking token?
So there's probably two reasons. Actually, what's one solid reason, and that's mainly risk. So as Jordan said, with a permissionless node operator set, generally they're collateralized. So it means that if there's any issues, if the node operator is slashed, or if there's actually like or they don't perform, then it kind of comes out of their collateral rather than the collateral provided by liquid stakers. It also means that they are economically aligned. So they want the best return for themselves, and so they perform to get the best return for themselves. So that's a key kind of element there as well. The other thing is kind of like a diversification. So the more decentralized your validator set, the less likely, the more resilient it is. So for example, we've got over 2,000 node operators, and they're across I think it's something like 100 different geographic locations, and so that makes it very, very resilient, not only from an operational perspective, but it also makes it resilient from like a censorship resistant perspective, a credible neutrality perspective. So all of those kind of things. But mainly it comes down to kind of risk, and that is not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and there are some trade-offs to that, though. We have a rated network dashboard for dsETH that kind of looks through the performance data across all of the protocols. Rocket Pool's coming in with a solid 96% of their effectiveness rating, and Lido, just a bit higher there with 97.5. So Izzy, can you speak to maybe what are the trade-offs of a permissionless operator set versus why might stakers be okay with having a permissioned operator set?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just to give a little background of that, Lido's operator set is currently permissioned. What that means is that operators basically need to apply to the DAO and go through an evaluation process and then an onboarding process to be included. There's currently 29 operators on Ethereum, and the plans are with the next protocol upgrade to start introducing an infrastructure that will basically also allow permissionless entry into the node operator set. There's going to be a lot of interesting information released on that in the coming weeks. There's a couple of things that basically having or starting off with a curated operator set allows you to do. And I say starting off because I think you'll notice that all of the liquid staking solutions, at least the ones that have like long-term potential, start to converge on a very similar mechanism for what the makeup of their validator and operator sets will look like in a couple of years from now. So there will be some large players running like thousands of validators. There will be a long tail of smaller operators running most likely a smaller amount of validators, and then also a middle tail of small groups or organizations, potentially organizations like DAOs, also running validators, either for their own reasons, like to support their treasury, or in order to like augment financial products that they're offering. So permission operator sets currently allow you to be a little bit more exacting about the performance that you expect from operators. Generally, the operators that are onboarded are like professionals in the sense that they do this for a living. So you might see that these operators have validators on multiple chains, that they have like larger security guidelines and more procedures around robustness and fallbacks and things like that. So Lido has been very fortunate to not have like any slashing events so far. And the other thing is that, of course, because of the fact that at least currently Lido's validators are uncollateralized, the important thing is that we give optionality to the users to be able to do anything that they want with the STETH token like above and over that. So if you want to get insurance or cover for that, it's left up to the user. But the very important thing as we go into withdrawals is that because there's no actually like underlying collateral from these node operators for running these nodes, they can be exited without really like any good reason from the node operators to not exit the node, so that users, stakers, can ask for the full redemption of their Ethereum back. In some of the permissionless protocols, especially when part of the bond, or let's say the initial deposit of a validator, comes from a small node operator, it's very difficult / impossible to basically tell them like, you have to exit this validator so that we can take 3/4 or 1/2 of the remainder of the deposit in order to meet staker deposits, staker withdrawal requests. So those are like kind of technical and design considerations that other liquid staking protocols will have to deal with sooner rather than later. Whereas in Lido's case, those can be dealt with later. And as you think of like collateralization mechanisms, and using the permissioned pool, which is going to be much larger in the beginning to meet withdrawal redemptions and things like that. The other really important thing is that it allows you to kind of be opinionated. And I see that you guys have posted our operator set strategy in the scorecard in the chat. So that's super appreciated in terms of what you ask the operators to do. So in general, if you want to push operators to do things that are good for everyone and good for the network, it's really easy to do. If you want to push them to do things that are bad for the network, people are going to be against it. So we've been like leveraging this ability to guide operators in the right direction to do things like improve client diversity, both on the consensus layer as well as on the execution layer side, to improve infrastructure diversity, geographic and jurisdictional dispersion, and even things like thinking about when we onboard operators, what is the current saturation that our operator set has on large cloud providers, and what does that mean for the network? How can we find ways to support operators that run in local data centers and route ETH to them so that they can grow their organizations and business models, and basically offer more robust infrastructure, like Langers were saying, in terms of making sure that you have node operators all over the world so that they can support the network.
If you don't, I wouldn't mind just jumping in and just quickly, I guess clarifying something that Izzy just mentioned. So when you have permissionless node operators, like what Rocket Pool has and what we're moving to on the Stakewise side, the collateral that the operators post is there exactly as insurance, and the operators cannot withdraw that. If the operator makes a mistake and gets slashed, then they get penalized through their collateral. They cannot just withdraw that collateral to avoid the penalty there. So that mechanism in place is like a key security mechanism. And the other thing as well is on the permissionless side, at least what we're doing on Stakewise v3, one of the key things, as he mentioned, was that currently the control for the validators is with the node operators, and it's basically up to the node operators whether they want to close down the validators or not and return the ETH to the staking pool. So Stakewise currently has the ability to force close the validators for our operators. And even when we move to a permissionless setup, we will still be able to do that. And so even when we have permissionless anonymous node operators running Ether for our protocol, we as a DAO will be able to force close validators should we need to on behalf of our stakers if we ever need to get ETH back from the validators. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention or clarify, something on top of what Izzy just mentioned.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And, I think the two key themes for diversified staked ETH, we're really going for diversification and decentralization. Both are risk mitigation tactics. And I think we've mentioned slashing a few times, but Langers, maybe could you define what is slashing and how does Rocket Pool protect or insure against that risk?
Yeah, so actually there's a bit of a misnomer. So there's actually a couple of different, I guess, penalties with Ethereum staking. So as a node operator, you have to keep your node online, and when you do that, it's performing these duties for the Ethereum consensus mechanism or proof of stake. And so it's a testing the blocks are the head of the chain, and it's also proposing blocks and this sort of thing. So if you are down, the penalty is actually not that severe. In fact, you can earn the rewards back very, very quickly for being down. So downtime is actually not a huge deal. I mean, you want to optimize your investment clearly, so that you certainly do want to be online, but that's not necessarily such a big deal. So the kind of worry of downtime is a little bit of a misnomer. Now, that's not slashing. So downtime is not slashing. So slashing is completely different. Slashing is essentially you breaking the consensus rewards. Now, there's a couple of cases, but there's pretty much just one that's ever really affecting people, and it's quite like a double vote or a surround vote. So it's when you run your validator in two places at the same time, and then you end up kind of voting on two different things. So if you run your validator in the same place twice, then you will get slashed. But over time, the clients, when I say the clients, I mean like the consensus clients, like Lighthouse and Nimbus and Teku. Actually, I should say not Teku at the moment, but they are building it. Have built-in protections like doppelganger detection and this sort of thing, which actually goes through and checks when it spins up. It checks to make sure that there's no other validators running with those keys, and so bails out if there is. So in actual fact, it's actually getting safer and safer to do Ethereum staking. And that's really exciting for us because we want more and more home stakers to be involved, to have the kind of confidence. And our community have, actually, I'll rewind a little bit, but our community have kind of onboarded hundreds and hundreds of home stakers. The whole slashing thing is if you do that, you're penalized. I think it's now 1 ETH. I think you're penalized 1 ETH, and you're exited from the beacon chain. So that's kind of the penalty. There are other penalties. There's kind of like a coordinated or a correlated slashing and correlated kind of downtime as well. But they are definitely more extreme on that. But it's best to read about those as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Rocket Pool has onboarded so many stakers to the ecosystem. I've noticed more and more, I think, even people that are kind of extreme hobbyists, very excited about Ethereum running their own node, have recently kind of migrated to, you know what, I'm just going to use the Rocket Pool kit instead. Can you speak to like what has Rocket Pool done so well that even home stakers are turning to Rocket Pool to help run their nodes or their validators?
Yeah, so it's really about the tooling. Rocket Pool have kind of optimized the user experience for node operators, or we try to. So we've got this thing called the Smart Node Stack, which essentially it's the simplest way to spin up a node. It helps you spin up the node, helps you maintain the node, it helps you monitor the node as well. So it's got kind of like Grafana dashboards and that sort of thing in there. It's also got all the things you need for maintenance and that sort of thing. We kind of make it simple, and we also kind of abstract away the differences between the clients. The clients are very good at standardizing across them, but we kind of abstract that away. So you just if you want to use Lighthouse today and Nimbus tomorrow, then that's a very easy thing to do. We've also got things like fallback support, so you can actually point your you can have a fallback set up so that it will automatically fall back over to that when you're, say for example, when you're pruning your ETH1 node and that sort of thing. So all of those things are kind of built in because we're stakers ourselves, and our community are a massive community of stakers, and so that continual feedback has been coming back in from those stakers, and so we've managed to kind of optimize that experience quite well. Plus, our community have also supported from a technical perspective and also from a zeal and that sort of thing perspective as well. They've certainly onboarded or orange pilled many people.
We've ported in some comments from the YouTube at the bottom here. The Discord server has been super important. Definitely has a lot of activity always in the Rocket Pool Discord server when we pop in there. I think hand it over to Jordan. I think what do you think is really key to Rocket Pool's success there? And you guys are moving to a permissionless operator set. What kind of things would you like to see to help grow Stakewise as you guys transition to V3? I think it's something that the ecosystem is very excited about, something that we're excited about, and that people in the staking community, prominent voices like Super Fizz, for example, is a big one. yeah, what are you guys gonna emulate? What tactics you're gonna employ to help grow the Stakewise liquid staking ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's super exciting because I think, as Darren mentioned, the people who solo stakers are super passionate, and you're almost tapping into like a really passionate community that will get behind your product, and that's something that's certainly led to Rocket Pool's success to date, as Lang has mentioned, given their community and the buzz behind the platform. And so, for sure, we'd hope to emulate that, and we're enabling a different value proposition to solo stakers. On V3, solo stakers will be able to liquid stake on their own node, and so I hate to say we're competition here. Like, we are obviously offering different protocols, but we're all trying to do something different and offer different value propositions. So, we're hoping that V3 will attract solo stakers who want to liquid stake on their own node. We certainly want to be attracting Rocket Pool node operators, not to take them away from Rocket Pool, but they can be operators on both platforms, right? So that's something that's super exciting. And Darren also mentioned about the usability of the platform. One thing we built at Stakewise is a UI for the node operators. There's a operator software that operators can use if they choose, and it's designed purely to be as simple as possible. And yeah, we want to make sure that the technical barriers towards running your own node at home is reduced as much as possible. And further to that, like, we're working closely with projects like Dapnode and Avado. These are like fantastic companies that are not only providing great UI for home stakers, but also the hardware as well. That so it's arguably easier than ever to buy and run your own node, and we're hopefully we'll continue iterating to lower those barriers over the years to come. And as Darren mentioned, there's lots of things like the clients teams helping reduce the risk of slashing. All of these things will come together, and we'll keep building to make sure that Ethereum home staking specifically is a very safe and easy thing to do.
Yeah, let's bring it back to the other side of the equation. I think Rocket Pool and Stakewise, or Rocket Pool especially, doing a great job of attracting more and more node operators. But luckily, all you have to do is buy the liquid staked ETH token to enjoy the benefits of what those ETH blocks are producing. So Izzy, what do you think Lido did so well in terms of just having such a strong product that was able to attract so many inflows into the liquid staking ecosystem? Staked ETH has been the runaway leader since the get-go.
So I think there's kind of like three core principles behind pretty much all of the decisions that, at least as contributors, we try to suggest towards the DAO. And that's like security, ease of use, and capital efficiency. And I think when you like meld all those together and you create as much optionality and composability for users as possible, like via integrations, that's what makes the staked ETH, at least in my mind, like the most appealing avenue, because it gives you the most options of things to do later. So from the capital efficiency perspective, one of the benefits of going with a curated set to begin with is that basically your supply is unbounded, provided you have enough operators spinning up enough validators at a quick enough clip in order to meet the demand. If it's permissionless or it relies on a bonded model, which you kind of have to be in order to do permissionless safely in the beginning, you might be limited by the rate at which people are able to find enough collateral to put up as a bond in order to spin up mini pools. One of the other kind of limitations that some protocols run into is that the rate of integrations might be a bit slower, or like the level of liquidity that's provided on the secondary markets may not be up to the same par as protocols that have had longer to build it up, right? So Lido was one of the first liquid staking protocols on the scene. It wasn't, I think, the first one actually, but the fact that it's been around that long definitely helps, because liquidity is kind of like a self-reinforcing moat in a certain way, because liquidity begets liquidity. At this point, though, especially once withdrawals are unlocked, you're going to see that liquidity is going to be less of an important factor, because there will be immediate liquidity from a withdrawals perspective. I mean, it won't be immediate in the sense that like you're going to unstake and get your ETH back the next day. But you will probably get it back unless the exit queue is ginormous within a couple of days at the most. And then that's really going to help both arbitrage mechanisms on secondary markets, but also I think propel the use of staked assets as Lego blocks, if you want to put it that way, or like the meat in a DeFi sandwich.
Yeah, I think you remind me of a point that I really want to make here about the dsETH index. The way Index Coop products work is this: the dsETH and all of our index tokens are permissionlessly redeemable for their underlying assets. So that's how the Diversified Staked ETH Index is able to maintain its spot price on decentralized exchanges is going to be very tight to the net asset value of the tokens underneath it, because arbitrageurs can always mint and redeem that token and capture the spread if there's a premium or discount on the spot market. And soon everyone will be able to do that with liquid staked ETH when withdrawals are enabled post Shanghai. So let's talk about Shanghai a little bit. I think it's going to be potentially a catalyst for the liquid staking ecosystem, but it seems like there got to be some risk associated with it as well. What are all of your protocol teams working on as we approach Shanghai? What is the team focused on in terms of making sure that this goes smoothly? Anyone can take that one. Go ahead. I know you guys all have your eyes on Shanghai. So
yeah. So from a Rocket Pool perspective, we're preparing a release called Atlas. It has two jobs. The first one is to support withdrawals. Actually, our contracts. So actually, with Rocket Pool, you can redeem it today. Just because the way that we've designed it, you can actually redeem via Rocket Pool today, because we have a deposit pool that provides liquidity for unstaking. So that's kind of like one thing. And so from our perspective, nothing really changes, or from a liquid staking perspective, it just gets easier to do that. For Atlas's point of view, it's to support withdrawals. So our contracts support full withdrawals, but they don't support this thing called partial withdrawals. And so that's one thing that we're implementing with Atlas. Atlas also has the other kind of goal of scalability with Rocket Pool. So we're actually lowering the collateral that's required from a node operator. Currently, they need 16 ETH. So to be a solo staker, you need 32. To be a Rocket Pool node operator, you need 16 as of today. But as of Atlas, you'll need 8. So we're actually reducing that collateral. We're putting migration paths in for people who are running 16 ETH mini pools. And we've also got a mechanism to kind of support solo stakers to be able to migrate. This is a one-time kind of thing, but they'll be able to migrate from their solo staker into Rocket Pool. And so that's, so those things will help us kind of grow much faster, but while still giving very, very strong security and risk guarantees to our ETH holders.
Yeah, I can try to go next. So from our perspective, like obviously withdrawals is the most important thing to land. In some sense, it's kind of like the basic functionality that you would expect in a staking system is finally going to be done. A little bit over 2 years after Genesis, which is a bit of like an interesting thing if you think about it, but it's also the way that Ethereum works. It's a protocol that like ever adapts, ever evolves, and is always kind of changing to figure out what is the best way to do things given the information that we know now, and that changes every month. So it's still amazing that we can make like the progress that we're doing in unlocking all of the features as a network that we're unlocking. So from the Lido perspective, there's a proposal on the forums that generally describes the withdrawal design that contributors are aiming for, and the idea is that like in the Rocket Pool model, there will be some of the deposit pool, or perhaps all of it, including the ether that is made available from partial withdrawals or skimming, made available for withdrawal redemption requests. But obviously, if that isn't enough, we need to find a way to exit underlying validators in order to make sure that stETH users get the ETH that they're requesting when they're trying to unstake. So there's quite a deep and technical process that goes into thinking what are the possible risks there, how long might that take, What is the order that you exit validators in and where from? How do you make sure that the node operators are executing against these requests basically and these orders as they're expected to? And obviously, like how do you route these requests to users? Also bearing in mind the fact that there's an exit queue, just like there is an entry queue into the beacon chain. And if there's a lot of exits happening at the same time, you might be looking at days or even weeks or like possibly even months in the worst case scenario of users waiting to fully withdraw their capital. And then what kind of optionality do you give to users in terms of being able to have like fungible, let's say, positions in this withdrawal queue? So those are all kinds of things that that the contributors are thinking about. And the other thing that's also going to be included, hopefully, in this planned upgrade is what we're calling the staking router. Some of the technical contributors talked about this in, I think, the second community call that we had back in December. But it's basically the infrastructure that's going to allow a plug and play model into the Lido operator set. So the idea is that you'll be able to leverage technologies like DVT or bonding mechanisms, or like, for example, fully ensuring the validators that are created in certain subsets of pools go to the DAO and say, hey, I want to make these types of validators or this pool of validators available to Lido to use it in order to meet as like a supply vector to meet demand. And then as a DAO and as a protocol, Lido will be able to decide and how to allocate stake. So it's the idea of moving from like a very kind of like limited set into something that resembles like a market.
Yeah, Jordan, how do you see the near term future for the liquid staking market? Do you think Shanghai may be a catalyst in terms of there's a lot of new liquidity for people that have been staking on centralized exchanges, and perhaps they'll move over to liquid staking? It seems like it's just the better product, but do you think maybe there are hurdles around ease of use, or what do you see as your near term outlook?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a bit of a debate going on right now whether there's going to be a whole bunch of Ethereum pulled out of staking because people can finally withdraw. Like, I just personally don't see that's the case. In fact, I think it's the complete opposite. And we're talking to a lot of people in the space, a lot of institutions, and node operators are signing contracts left, right, and center with institutions now. Now the Shanghai fork is finally it's penciled in. The merge was the biggest technical barrier, but the Shanghai fork is kind of the final stage to opening the floodgates. And yeah, it's going to be a massive catalyst, not just for liquid staking, but ETH staking in general. But to answer your question, yeah, liquid staking for sure. Like as we've touched upon, it makes complete sense. Like, sure, there's added risk. You're adding smart contract risk and protocol risk on top of your baseline staking. But I think for the majority of users, the reward is certainly there given the utility of these tokens. So yeah, we're super excited about what the Shanghai fork will bring. And Darren touched upon it as well. Like there's some really funky things you can do when when Shanghai comes. So for example, some node operators will be able to change their withdrawal address for their validator. And so not only can you just spin down your validator, you can actually maybe port your validator or your node into a liquid staking protocol. And so, yeah, there's lots of it just makes the Ethereum network almost complete, right? It's the step that unlocks a whole bunch of interesting activity, and as well as hopefully a whole bunch more ETH stake to come as well.
Larry's were you going to say something? Fiddling with the mute. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, no, I'm going to echo Jordan. Shanghai is going from all the discussions that we've had. There's going to be more stake rather than less. Actually, one of the things that really helps is, so people think they're going to unstake because they want to get their rewards, but in actual fact, Shanghai brings these things called partial withdrawals. So it means that anything above 32 actually gets withdrawn automatically. So people will have access to their rewards. It's just that their actual stake will still be staking. So that's a big thing because it means people won't have to withdraw to get those rewards. So that's kind of a big thing as well. But no, everything that we've seen is that Ethereum staking is going to get more and more popular.
Yeah, I mean, at Index Co-op, we're pretty excited for Shanghai to be a catalyst for new liquidity into the liquid staking space. We feel like your protocols and our diversified product really has a winning value proposition versus the centralized exchange staking, in terms of, your protocols have more competitive take rates. For one of the inclusion criteria to get included in the diversified staked ETH index is you got to have a competitive take rate, right? I think Coinbase has a a lot of assets. Obviously, they're a big name in crypto, but the take rate on their liquid staking token, CBETH, is I think 15%, 20. You're all higher. Excuse me, 25%. Is it? I know it's the inclusion criteria for dsETH is you got to be within 10% of the mean APR for the top liquid staking tokens. So you guys are all 10-15%. I think Coinbase is maybe 25% take rate. So, that's one big reason to liquid stake. You're gonna end up with more staking yield, right? And you're also going to get liquidity on your ETH. You're going to have composability within the DeFi ecosystem. And one thing we're really excited about for our diversified staked ETH product is that it optimizes for decentralization. So Rocket Pool's RETH rather has the highest allocation within the index currently. I think it's 44% of the dsETH token, because we score all the liquid staking protocols based on the number of node operators in their set, and then the distribution of stake across those node operators. So by buying dsETH, you're getting diversified exposure to these top competitive liquid staking protocols, and you're incentivizing decentralization amongst liquid staking protocols. So we feel like it's something that people can really feel good about purchasing, and recommend to folks that are maybe on the sidelines, knowing they want to stake their ETH, but may find spinning up their node to be too complicated, or buying just one token to be putting all their eggs in one basket. As we get ready to wrap up here, guys, just feel free to chime in with how do you see the liquid staking ecosystem developing? What would you like to see maybe from a new entrant into the ecosystem, or upgrades to your own protocol? What are you guys excited about adding to the space? Izzy, I'll let you go first.
Sure, thanks. I'm really excited for withdrawals in general. I think that the natural arbitrage mechanism that's unlocked by allowing people to withdraw their stake, and then feed that back into secondary market liquidity is going to unleash the power of liquid staking in general. I think the most interesting thing is the new types of composability that we might see in the future. So things like restaking. But from an infrastructure perspective, I really can't wait for DVT protocols to take hold, because they drastically reduce the surface area of risk that there might be around staking, even for professional node operators, but most importantly for permissionless participation. So they will exponentially reduce the collateral requirements, because you can have multiple people putting in collateral together, but at the same time, due to the fact that signing and consensus duties are split across multiple persons, the amount of things that can go wrong is drastically reduced if you ignore the very, very small possibility of collusion. So I think those are really going to change what operator sets and what validator sets look like within the next 1 to 2 years. And we're going to see really fundamental grassroots participation in staking. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, if you're following along, that was DVT, Distributed Validator Technology. Search it up. A lot of good research coming out from the usual suspects, Delphi Digital, the Block Research, all of that. Everyone's covering DVT lately. Anything else from you guys? I mean, I think one thing I'm excited about is just more accessibility to staking, and including your liquid staked ETH tokens on layer 2. I think most of you guys have made big pushes recently as far as getting them liquid on Arbitrum, Optimism. I think Polygon's coming as well. For dsETH, we're available on mainnet and ZK Sync. We've got a strong partnership with the folks over at Argent Wallet, great smart contract wallet with a native ZK Sync integration. So that's where we distribute our products currently. Anything else you guys are excited about?
Yeah, I think we continuously kind of do risk management. So as Izzy said, those technologies are kind of very interesting as well. I think the new kind of products, I'm looking forward to Ethereum staking breaking records. That'd be amazing. But also, I'm kind of looking forward to, as I said, the composability, seeing what people actually do with liquid staking. There's some very, very talented, very clever people in the world. So seeing what they how they compose this is going to be very good. And it's kind of one of those things that is it's a DeFi kind of value prop, really. It's one of those things that traditional finance does not have, and so it's great.
Thank you to Dr. Doofus in the chat for telling me to flip my camera around. I saw that I had it on mirror camera on. I was like, that's good, right? But I noticed halfway through, I was like, I can read Stakewise on Jordan's shirt, but I can't read mine. Yeah, get that product placement in there. Thanks for joining us, guys. I know we're about ready to wrap here. I'll give Jordan, if you have got a final word you want to get in, go ahead.
I think Izzy and Darren summed it up very well with DVT. I think that's the next. Am I muted? Am I muted? No.
You're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's the next major technology hurdle, which on the permissionless side specifically is super exciting. And I echo Darren's point as well about just seeing what people are building. So like, I know I mentioned V3, but like it's a new model. We're very excited to see how it fares. And there's obviously a lot of smart people in the space that are building new staking protocols. And yeah, it's just exciting to see what, we need competition. It's healthy. It makes us all get better essentially, and push forward the technology. So yeah, it's exciting to see where we go. And yeah, and also just I'm very keen to see how much ETH actually does get staked. Like we've spoken about the percentage supply of ETH staked is probably about 14% right now of the total supply is staked. And if you look at the other proof of stake networks, you're punching way above 50 on many of them, 50% that is. So yeah, we've got a massive delta to other proof of stake networks. So I'm very keen to see how much we close that gap post Shanghai.
Agree. Come stake your ETH, guys. When we launched this product, I sent our introducing the dsETH index to my dad and my sister, and got a few more people to liquid stake their ETH. I think if you know someone that has, they used to have their ETH on a centralized exchange, they withdrew from Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken around the FTX fiasco because they knew they didn't want to be on a centralized exchange anymore. They know they want to be staking their ETH, but they haven't picked a particular protocol or LP pool, find all of that a bit too time consuming. I think dsETH is the product for them. So thanks to all three of you guys for coming to talk about your liquid staking tokens and about the industry. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there.
Thanks for having us. It was great.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.